Guys, I'm back. Happy Monday. Today we're going to be doing a episode of Free Game, and today's episode is going to all be about trust issues. We are going to have a very nuanced conversation about what trust issues are, what it looks like to be someone who doesn't have trust issues, because I feel like we use that word a little bit too loosely. I'm going to let the room fill up a little bit. Morning. Someone says, I was just thinking about you, and here you are. Ta-da, I'm a genie. For those of you who are coming in, somebody said the Jason Lee podcast messed up when they took you off. Oh, that's sweet. Me and Jason are still cool. There's no beef with Jason and I. Hey, Blue, love you. Love you too, love. I'm excited about doing this on a Monday morning. There's just something so empowering about doing an episode of Free Game. For those of you who are new to me or who have never been around for one of my lives, Free Game is a weekly, I try to make it weekly, live that I do in the weeks leading up to my Own Thy Shift workshop. Own Thy Shift is a workshop that I do 3 times a year, once in the winter, once in the summer, and once in the fall. And we meet every Wednesday for 2 hours to actually do shadow work. I teach people in really granular ways how to become emotionally intelligent. I think a lot of times terms like emotionally intelligent, healthy, toxic, they're very abstract. Nobody really understands how to go from point A to point B, but I am meticulous. And I have actually cracked the code on how to teach the fundamentals of emotional intelligence to everyday people and to therapists and people who think they're advanced. So if you're advanced and you come to my class, then you basically get a new framework to enhance the way that you understand EQ. And if you ain't never done shit about anything and don't know any terms, there's also a space for you as well. I love the fact that I have a classroom where it's varied, because a lot of times people might be in different places of life, but we can all learn from each other. That's why the classes are all levels, because all levels, somebody who's in a space of self-mastery can still learn something from someone who's a beginner. All right, I'm gonna make sure that before we get started, I just say hello to you guys, because I'm trying to be better about this. Someone said, Blue looking good. I took a long shower. I was 7 minutes late because I was in the shower just washing away my sins. Girl, your reading last week was the whole damn truth. Sheesh. Can't wait for your next reading. Yes, for those of you who have been following my YouTube, I am going to stick to doing weekly pick-a-card readings. I'm actually going to be taping one right after I do this and do some meetings. Someone says, honestly, I like to hear you exclusively without other voices. Well, I like to talk to people, so you're always going to hear other voices a little bit. Let's see what else. I'm saying hello to everybody. I see some familiar faces in here. I adore you guys. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do now that the room is filling up is I'm going to put in the URL for the Own Thy Shift classes, right? Because this is all you guys getting a taste, only a taste of what the class is like, which is why I call it Free Game. The URL for anybody who's listening is fall24.eventbrite.com. Just give me a quick second for me to write this down. fall24.eventbrite.com. And the reason why we only do these, because somebody asked me, I'm going to answer some common questions. The reason why I only do this 3 times a year is because the workshops are exhausting. I don't know how else to put it. The workshops take a lot out of me. I love them. I think the workshops are probably my favorite thing that I do out of everything that I do. But it is exhausting doing shadow work with 20 to 30 people for 8 weeks straight every week. So because of my own mental health, I can only energetically do them 3 times a year. And the beautiful thing about doing the workshop is it's live, right? So you're getting to ask me questions in real time. We're workshopping through your stuff in real time. And, oh, this is a flex. I want to do a quick flex before we get started with today's Free Game. On Eventbrite, there is a button, and I'm going to actually post a picture of this, that tells you how much repeat clientele you have. They've now put it on my page that I have consistent repeats. That is the biggest compliment that you can give to anybody who was selling you any services. For some reason, not for some reason, let me not be modest, I know exactly the fuck why. But for some reason, a lot of people who take the class come back and either take it again as a refresher or they purchase it for friends and family. The fact that people are not just coming to the class because they like me popping my shit online, but they're actually staying, enjoying it, finding value and returning and spreading the word to their friends and family. That is the biggest compliment I could ever get. That means that I'm exactly who the fuck I say I am. And it's not just optics. It's not just beautiful gowns a la Aretha Franklin. That there's actually an intrinsic value that is so compelling that they want to share with others. I just want to thank every single repeat client that I've had. There are people who've been taking this class once a year for the past 3 or 4 years. I've watched people who've taken the class who didn't even know how to have a courageous conversation, who are now maneuvering really, really advanced levels of emotional intelligence and personal growth that they would have never expected. And I always tell my repeat students, think back to who you were the first time we worked together. Think back to that person 2, 3, 4 years ago who first came to me, who was like, Blue, I'm scared of my own shadow. And now you're taking bitches out and advocating for your health and having thriving relationships. Like, I love that. Another reason why I love the fact that we have so many repeat clients in the workshop is because a lot of folks, when they see how I move through the world, they act as if I just must be lucky. I just must be a bitch who was born with a big personality, who knew a bunch of big words, who had the luxury of going to fancy schools, and that they could never be like that. Bullshit. Emotional intelligence is a muscle that anybody can learn to flex. Okay? I was born neurodivergent, ADHD, and anxiety disorder in a Caribbean family in the 80s. You want to talk about not being set up for success? Like, every single thing you could think of for me to be toxic, to have intimacy issues, I had the whole pie. So the fact that I've gotten to a place where I am what they call securely attached, which, by the way, is a statistical anomaly. Being securely attached in 2024 is rare, but it's something that I didn't just get born with. It's something that I cultivated. So I'm very passionate about doing this work because I don't want anybody to think, oh, Blue's just lucky. Fuck luck. I ain't never been lucky. I had to bust my ass for everything that I had. All right. So now that I've done the intro and given the room time to fill up, we are going to do the first installment of free game for the week. I might do a second one depending on how busy I am. But this one, someone said, hey, Blue, I loved you on Mama's Den. Yes, I loved being on Mama's Den. I love them so much. I hope they have me back. We had so much fun. So much fun. All right. So you guys know how I do this. For the newbies, I'm going to give you a second. Get pen and paper. I'm telling you right now, get pen and paper. Because the thing that I pride myself on is I do not come online to be inspirational. I am not someone who comes online to say a bunch of pretty words and be inspirational. I come online to give people resources. If you walk away listening to one of my lives without hearing a quote, a gem, a framework, a tool, or a clarifying point that has helped you in some way be enriched by this conversation, then I have failed you. Right? I have failed you. I do not like watching the wellness community be completely co-opted by inspirational speakers who aren't teaching you shit. So, if you are new here, please get pen and paper. I promise you, you will find something to write down before this time is over. Someone said, I love you and on thy shift. I have every intention of taking it again. Please, y'all, if you have the space, take the class. It's impactful and full of community. Thank you, love. All right, let's get into it. So today is all about trust issues. Y'all ready? Trust issues. Now, why am I doing this about trust issues? Well, because we are living in a time right now where it is very easy to not trust anything. The world is burning. We don't know what's happening politically, socially. Our heroes are constantly being revealed to be monsters. It is easy to be scared of your own shadow right now. And the thing that inspired trust issues being the topic of today is, let's take the word trust off the table because that can feel abstract. Let's first talk about two very important words that you guys often conflate. They work well together, but they're not the same. This is going to be the first thing that you guys write down. The first word I want you to write down, hold on for a second, is transparency. The second word that I want you to write down is vulnerability. If we're going to be talking about trust issues, we first have to figure out what trust looks like in action. And the way that people often non-verbally show you that they trust you is through transparency and vulnerability. Please write that down. Transparency versus vulnerability. They are not the same thing. Okay? So what is transparency, guys? I'm going to let somebody in here just take a guess. What do you guys think transparency is? Because that one's probably the easier one. It's literally in the word. Transparency is the state of being transparent. It means that you are clear. But guess what, guys? That's all it means. You can be transparent and still be manipulative. You can be transparent and still be a fucking liar. You can be transparent and still be a narcissist. Fuckboys hate when I do these classes because one of the things that fuckboys, and I'm using that term gender neutrally, right? I'm using fuckboy as somebody who selfishly and recklessly moves through the world in a way that only benefits them without factoring in their impact on others. Okay, that's how I use fuckboy. So the boy is gender neutral. But fuckboys hate my classes because there are these clever tricks that manipulative people use by using words that sound nice, but that don't actually validate them as being good people. Transparent is one of those words. Just because you're transparent, it just means you're being clear. Doesn't mean you're being kind. Doesn't mean you're being honest, right? Because you can be transparent in very specific ways while still telling a whole bunch of lies elsewhere. Transparent just means you're being clear in the moment. So transparency only means clarity. Now, what does vulnerability mean? Vulnerability means sharing something that could potentially harm you and trusting yourself and or others not to weaponize it against you. You see the difference? Shit gets interesting around vulnerability. So transparency just means, let me give you an example. A man being transparent with a woman, because I'm a woman who dates men, so that's why I'm going to use that example. A man being transparent. Somebody says vulnerability means to be safe. No, vulnerability means to risk not being safe because you are trusting safety is in the room. You're actually risking not being safe when you're being vulnerable, which means you have to be courageous when you're being vulnerable. All right, so let's say I'm dating a guy and he tells me, Blue, I have commitment issues. That is transparent. All he did is tell me that he has commitment issues. He didn't tell me if he's going to do shit about it. He didn't tell me if he's going to keep me safe. He didn't tell me if he even doesn't like it. Some people tell you what's wrong with them and they like what's wrong with them. They have no intention on working on it. All he did was tell me, Blue, I have commitment issues, which means if we date and he keeps acting like I'm his girlfriend and he keeps acting like he's investing in me and he keeps giving me nonverbal cues that repeatedly for months signal that we are in some way building a union. But as soon as I catch him doing something dishonorable, he says, but I was transparent. I told you I had commitment issues. Never once did him being transparent also equate to him having integrity. He moves without integrity, but he's thinking because he's transparent, he got away with it. Do y'all see how this works? So transparency simply means to be clear. Being transparent does not mean you're a good person. It just means that you're being honest about your bullshit. That's all it means. So when I meet somebody who's transparent and the conversation starts and ends with transparency, I get nervous. Because my first thought is, well, where the fuck is the rest? Yes, you are a hot mess. Then what happened? Somebody said word games. Oh my God, yes. People who are fuckboys, and again, for those who are coming in, fuckboys is a gender neutral term in this space, right? Those who move in reckless ways that do not factor in any damage, harm, or impact done to others are fuckboys. Men, women, gender not conforming, use a fuckboy in my terminology, right? So when someone's being transparent, they're only doing so that later when they disrespect you, they can say, but I was transparent though. But I was transparent. Okay, then what? If somebody wants to walk up to you and say, hey, I'm about to shoot you in the face, they were transparent. What does that mean? It doesn't mean they're a good person. Now, vulnerability means I'm going to share something with you that makes me vulnerable. Something that is tender, something that is sacred, something that could potentially hurt me if weaponized against me, but I trust me and or you enough to still share it. The thing about vulnerability is vulnerability in most cases, and I'm using my language intentionally, in most cases, vulnerability implies bravery, right? Vulnerability means he's not just saying, Blue, I have commitment issues. He's then saying, Blue, I have commitment issues because my mom and dad broke my heart when I was 7 years old and got divorced because I never saw my father and mother love each other, be there for each other, or respect each other in a way that I could learn from. So I've learned that anytime I get attached to people loving each other, that heartache is on the other side of that. And I don't trust myself to have my heart broken like that ever again. So I will continue to be dismissive, avoidant, and non-committal because I don't trust me. That's vulnerability. Vulnerability means that you are being introspective enough to ruminate on why the thing that you're being transparent about even exists, right? So the thing about vulnerability is, again, most times vulnerability implies that there is bravery in the room. However, thanks to TikTok and social media and big mouths like me who have explained that transparency alone is not enough, the fuckboys have evolved. Now they're weaponizing vulnerability. Oh God. I feel like an X-Men. I feel like an X-Men. Like every time I figure out a way to help the people, the devil finds a new way to lie. So what does it look like when somebody is manipulating vulnerability? Perfect example. If you want to know if someone's manipulating vulnerability, ask yourself, when and why are they being vulnerable? When and why are they being vulnerable? Are you being vulnerable to connect? Are you being vulnerable with the intention of improving? Or are you being vulnerable because I caught you cheating on me and now you think they're talking about your daddy issues? It's going to make me feel bad for you and forget that you dicked that girl down. Ooh, got awkward, right? People have learned to weaponize vulnerability. Being vulnerable in moments where you have hurt me and using vulnerability as a get out of jail free card instead of acknowledging the pain that you've caused me is fucking manipulative. You do not get to talk about your daddy issues in the moment where you have not yet acknowledged the pain that you've caused. Your daddy didn't fuck that girl, you did. Right? So let's do a quick repeat. Somebody said, gotta give vulnerability a code name to distract the enemy. Y'all are funny. So let's do a quick recap for those who just came in. People have trust issues, and because the world is so precarious and prickly and unstable right now, I understand the knee-jerk reaction to having a trust issue. However, for those of you who are seeking to be healthy, the thing that you have to understand about trust issues and trust in general is there is no trust without transparency and vulnerability. Transparency simply means that you are being clear about who you are and what you're doing. Vulnerability means that you're being introspective enough to understand why you move like that. People who are transparent but do not have any sort of time or inclination to talk about improvement are half-cocked. People who are transparent and have vulnerability but are only doing so when they want you to feel bad for them because they don't want to take accountability for how they've harmed you are manipulative. Transparency is only honorable when the intention behind it is to connect. Please write that down, guys, for anybody who's taking notes. Transparency is only honorable when the intention is to connect. Transparency will never, ever replace accountability. Just because you're being vulnerable about why you fucked up doesn't mean you didn't still fuck up. Doesn't mean you don't get to acknowledge your impact. Doesn't mean that you don't still have the responsibility of making it right. Right? So be clear, guys. None of these words make you able to circumvent accountability. And I have gotten so tired. This is me going to be sharing for a second. I can't tell you how many men that I have met recently who have been interested in me, who clearly have Wi-Fi and have found my page. And I can tell immediately from the way that they're talking that they're trying to impress me as an EQ coach. The appetizer done barely showed up. And you're talking about your childhood traumas. You're opening up about all these really amazing, vulnerable things that I haven't earned the right to hear about yet. They're like, oh, Blue is the emotional intelligence girl. Let me show her how introspective I can be. Which honestly, I don't mind in small doses. But then this is where things get tricky. Then I say, wow, I love that you've clearly thought about this a lot. Like, shit, I ain't even finished my salad, and you've already told me your attachment style and what your therapist told you, or that you're looking for a therapist, and your daddy issues, and your father wounds, and your mommy issues. Like, this is amazing. And, you learn in the class, for those of you who are coming in to register for our last On Thy Shift class of the year, I have it pinned in the comments. But then I say to them, now what? And they pause. They're like, what do you mean? Thank you for being so introspective about what happened before me. Now what? It's great that you're being transparent about your issues. It's great that you understand some of the root causes of your issues. And now what? What are you going to do about it? 9 times out of 10, they start stuttering because they thought that us bonding over trauma was all they had to do to get into my pants. No, babe. Like, I'm a self-mastery coach. Acknowledging why you were fucked up is only part 1. Like, you didn't understand that there was more parts? Like there's more parts. So when someone's being transparent and vulnerable, they have to back it up with action. They have to back it up with intentionality. They have to back it up with improved behavior. You telling me what's wrong with you is not enough. I'm not impressed by that. You know why I'm not impressed by that? The entire fucking internet is obsessed with diagnosing itself and others. Everybody is obsessed with the diagnosis, but don't nobody want to do the fucking work. What comes after the diagnosis? Can you imagine if you went to the doctor and they were like, yeah, so you got cancer. You have cancer. You have a malignant tumor. And then he just said, thank you for coming and left. You'd be like, excuse me, sir. Where is the rest, right? I'm not impressed by a diagnosis. I'm impressed by intentionality and improved behavior. So please, let me eat my fucking bread basket if all you plan to do is tell me what's wrong with you. I don't want to hear it. I don't. I'd rather talk about what comes next because that's the part that involves me and my psychological safety. Now, oh, hey, Heather. I love that so many people who take the class or who already signed up for the class are in here. Squad, I need to find a name for the On Thy Shift crew because you guys are growing. I love it when alumni from the class become friends with each other. So now you have friends and family who have shared language. I also want to give a shout out to Cheech, Bridget's husband, Cheech. Bridget and Cheech took the class last year before they got married. And it was so helpful. Cheech has signed up his mama and half of his aunties to take the class since then. His homegirls have taken the class. Like, I love when people literally want to show that their community wants to evolve with them. I love that so much. So now here's the thing, right? I just talked big shit about how I cannot stand it when someone thinks that I'm going to clap for them simply for telling me what's wrong with them, but having no intention to improve. What did I promise you guys at the beginning of this live? I believe in giving people the tools to improve. So let's talk about tools. Let's talk about the takeaways from this live before I hop off to do my meetings for the day. When you are with someone and you are recognizing that they are not being transparent, subconsciously that hurts your feelings. If you want to connect. If you're full of shit, then you're relieved because now you're both full of shit. But if you're someone who sincerely wants to connect, part of connection comes from transparency and vulnerability, right? For those of you out there who struggle to be transparent and vulnerable, whenever I ask you, why aren't you transparent? Why aren't you vulnerable? The overwhelming answer that I always get is, I don't trust niggas. I don't trust none of these motherfuckers. I don't trust anybody. And I always gently push back. So what you're saying is you don't trust yourself. I'm going to give you guys a second to sit with that. Whenever you use other people's behavior as a reason not to be transparent and vulnerable in a relationship where transparency and vulnerability is a reasonable expectation, please don't forget that part. Please don't be vulnerable with the bus driver or your Uber driver. Please don't be vulnerable with your friend and me from high school. Please don't be transparent or vulnerable with somebody who can't stand your fucking guts. Please don't be vulnerable with somebody who treats you like shit. That's called a lack of discernment. So let's not be toxically positive here, because toxic positivity is actually really fucking dangerous and has you guys doing really unhealthy things under the guise of good vibes only. I'm not saying that. But in a relationship where an expectation of transparency and vulnerability is reasonable, i.e. someone that you're dating or sleeping with, i.e. someone that you call a close friend, i.e. someone that you share intimacies with, right? Whether they're implied or explicit, direct or indirect. In relationships where transparency and vulnerability are reasonable expectations, if you're struggling to do so, the answer isn't because you don't trust them. It's often because you don't trust you. Now, half of you in here, I just lost half of you. Half of you in here are going to be like, nah, Blue, I'm trustworthy, but these hoes ain't loyal. Give me a second. Give me a second to explain. I made a list. Y'all know I like making me little lists when I do these, right? I made a list that I want you guys to write about other people, because whenever I talk about you directly, y'all get defensive because that's the ego, right? Trying to fight back for itself. Let's make a list of the 7 things that tell you that you can trust someone. The next time you meet someone and you are in a relationship where you trusting them is very important and a reasonable expectation, make sure they're doing all 7 of these things. Okay, y'all ready? Can somebody put a blue heart in the chat? At least 2 or 3 of y'all put a blue heart in the chat so that I know that my Cuban tongue isn't making me talk too fast and y'all are actually ready. Are you guys ready to get a list of the 7 things that you need to know that someone is being honest with you in a way that's trustworthy? I'm waiting for the blue hearts. I'll sit here all day. I see one blue heart. Ooh, and that's a light blue, matches your hair. I see, 5 blue hearts. I love that, right? More blue hearts. All right, y'all want to know how you know that somebody is trustworthy? And by the way, this list isn't what I personally think makes someone trustworthy, because I'm very cognizant of the difference between personal truth and universal truth. This goes under the category, oh, look at all the beautiful blue hearts. This goes under the category of universal truth. This is bigger than me, it's bigger than us. This is human shit, right? That's why my show is called Humanized. We're all just human beings doing human shit. Number 1, looking at my list, they keep their word. The first way you know that somebody is trustworthy is they keep their fucking word. Hey, God's will, I love you. I haven't seen you forever. They keep their word. When you meet someone who, if they say they're going to do it, it's as good as done. They are showing you that they are trustworthy. That's number 1 of 7. Keep their word. Super simple. I do not want to belabor the point and make this live longer than it needs to because this is so fucking obvious. Number 2, they're honest about their feelings. When someone is brave enough to tell you how they feel, you ain't got to do no long division. You don't have to carry the one. You don't have to find the lowest common denominator. You don't have to read between the fucking lines. I hate that saying. They tell you how they actually feel. And their actions show that they were telling you how they actually felt. If they say they're mad, yeah, they act like they're mad. If they say they're annoyed, yeah, you can tell they're annoyed. If they say they love you, you can tell they love you. When someone is honest about their feelings, that's number 2, showing you that they're trustworthy. Number 3, they will show up for you in a crisis. Now, this one, again, tends to be tethered to intimacy. If you know that if you really need them, they will, within reason, again, please always use the word reasonable, because some of y'all have very unreasonable expectations, which is why the class is always debunking what's reasonable and unreasonable. So for anybody who's like, Blue, what does reasonable even mean? That takes too long to explain. I can't do that in a live. That's why I teach a class, right? But they show up for you in a crisis in the way that is reasonable. For some people, showing up for you in a crisis in a way that's reasonable is sending you resources. For somebody else, it's picking you up. For somebody else, it's connecting you with somebody who can help, somebody else who can help you. Whatever is reasonable for the relationship that you have with them, they show up for you, right? Even if it's just sending you a good word. Number 4, the consistency of their character. This one's my favorite. Because of the work that I do, I trigger a lot of people, right? It's my job to trigger people, so I don't even take it personal. Which means I get lied on a lot. When I am revealing to someone that they need to have an ego death or that they're toxic in a way that nobody else has ever had the language or inclination to tell them about, they get mad. And when the ego gets mad, it lies. So I get lied on a lot. But here's the beautiful thing about getting lied on as an occupational hazard. The consistency of my character always has my back. Even people who don't like me know how I get down. I have been me for so long, it is my own PR. So when you meet somebody who has a consistency of character, even if you can't fucking stand them, low-key, you probably trust them. I know exactly what the fuck I'm getting. Ain't no funny shit, to use street language, right? I can't stand that bitch, but at least she's consistent. I've heard people say that to me about me a couple of times. Number 5, they tell the truth. And it is confirmed by outside parties. And by outside parties, I don't mean other people. I mean literally the ecosystem around them is constantly confirming that they are a truth teller. Right? Now you're thinking about this person. You're like, damn, I really do trust this person that Blue's describing. Number 6, they take care of themselves. I don't trust nobody who puts themselves last. You know why? People who put themselves last are martyrs. Martyrs always lie to themselves to justify being martyrs because they're people pleasers. I do an entire class about how people pleasers are compulsive liars. That class always gets a lot of feedback. And by the end, they're like, we get it, but we're upset. The last time I did a people pleaser class, some of the people pleasers wanted to fight me. I wasn't scared. I've been doing this for a long time, right? But people pleasers are liars because you have to lie to pretend that you are going to please all the people all the time. You can't tell the truth and make everybody happy all the time. It's physically fucking impossible. So because people pleasers are liars and then they become martyrs and then they don't take care of themselves, someone who respects themselves enough to tell the truth about what they need is signaling to you non-verbally that they might be trustworthy. Wow. I had a friend, it was Bridget. Bridget and I did a podcast recently, it's coming out soon, where she was talking about, hey, Blue, sometimes when I hit you up and say, do you have a minute? You say, no, I don't. I ain't got it. I'm tired. I love you so much, so call me tomorrow. She's like, honestly, when you do that, it makes me trust you. Because it makes me realize that if I do say, do you have a minute? And you say yes, you actually have a fucking minute. Because if you don't, you will say no. I do not need to be a fucking martyr. I don't want to be God. I do not have a God complex. I only give it when I got it. Right? Generosity means giving it when you actually have it. Being a martyr means giving it even when you don't have it, and then wanting everybody to clap for you because you low-key think that now we need to all bend at your feet. Fuck you. You lied. You told me you had it when you didn't. You're not going to make me feel bad for believing you. That shit don't work on me. Martyrdom does not work on me. Because all you're doing is that you lied and you still expect me to clap for you for lying. I'm not doing that. You could have just said no and I could have asked somebody else. It's manipulative, right? So when someone takes care of themselves, which includes setting healthy boundaries about their capacity, when you trust that someone will always be honest with you about their bandwidth, that creates trust. Again, are you guys peeping that none of these things mean you like the person? Trust is bigger than likability. Likability is fickle. Trust is, it's so stable. I love that people who cannot stand me begrudgingly still trust me. Because one is tethered to lies and the other is tethered to respect. And last but not least, number 7, they're compassionate. Compassionate people inherently feel trustworthy. Again, we do an entire class about the difference between being nice, being kind, and being compassionate. Niceness, by definition, simply means to be agreeable. It doesn't mean you're telling the truth. It doesn't mean you're a good person. It just means you know how to say the right thing to make people like you. That's all it fucking means. It means you're agreeable and likable. That's it. I know some brilliant, nice liars. I know some brilliant, nice, horrible people. The cruelest people I've ever met were always really nice. Horrible people, nice as fuck. Lying through their teeth so much, they don't even know they're lying anymore. But so nice, so nice. Kindness is demonstrative. A kind person is showing you through and demonstrating that they're kind. Compassion is the best of both worlds. Compassion means, I'll be nice if I mean it. I'll be kind if it makes sense. And if there's a moment where my integrity dictates that the right thing might not feel nice or kind, I'm honest enough to do that as well. Compassion is more rigorous than niceness. And compassion is the involved version of kindness. I'm not going to repeat that because that's why you have to take the class, right? So when you're compassionate, when people know that you can be nice sometimes, you can be kind sometimes, but you're going to keep it a stack all the time, they trust it. Now, I'm going to do a quick replay of this list, right? 7 ways that you know that somebody's trustworthy. They keep their word. They are honest about their feelings. They show up in a crisis. They have a consistency of character. They tell the truth. They take care of themselves, and they're compassionate. Now, I just gave that list. That's how you know that you can trust someone else. Now I'm going to ask oh, hey, Ariane, you know I love you too. Oh, so many people I love are in here. Now, I'm going to ask you one simple question about that list. Does that list apply to you with how you deal with yourself? Does that list, do you do all 7 things with yourself? Do you keep your word to yourself? Are you compassionate with yourself? Do you trust yourself to pull yourself out of a crisis? Do you trust the consistency of your own character when dealing with yourself? Are you honest with yourself about your bandwidth? Do you show integrity when dealing with yourself and tell yourself when you simply ain't got it? I just gave you guys, somebody said, not me having church on the bus. I just gave you guys a list of 7 ways to know how to trust other people. But half of y'all can't even say that shit about yourself. For those who came in late, watch the replay. Y'all were so ready to pull out that list on other people, but you haven't even pulled it out on yourself. What does that mean? You don't trust yourself. So when you say to me, when you pay me all this money to come to me for one-on-ones and say, Blue, I don't understand why you're talking to me like this. The reason why I'm not transparent, the reason why I have trust issues, the reason why I'm sneaky, the reason why I'm not vulnerable isn't because of me. I love me. I trust me. It's because I don't trust other people. Bullshit. You don't trust yourself. Because guess what? If you trusted yourself, then you would trust yourself to take a risk on trusting others using discernment, and you would also trust your ability to bounce back when you choose incorrectly. Right? Because you would know, I'm going to use my discernment to reasonably be transparent and vulnerable with this other human, because transparency and vulnerability makes sense in the context of our relationship. I'm going to keep my word when dealing with them. I'm going to be compassionate when dealing with them. And if I get it wrong, what was number 3 on the list? If I get it wrong and a crisis arises and heartache comes and finds me, I trust myself to pull myself out of that crisis. And I trust myself to talk to myself compassionately about what we learned from that mistake. You can't be transparent with me because you can't even fucking be transparent with you. So yeah, so people are like, Blue, you're so naive. You're in your early 40s and you up here still trusting niggas. Because I trust me. Even when I get it wrong, I still got me. There's always a trustworthy person in the room. But when you don't even trust you, of course you're worried about the other person. Because if they're untrustworthy too, ain't no trustworthy people in the room. The room is empty. Any room that I'm in has at least one trustworthy person in it, so I can trust the room. I also trust my discernment to know when to leave the room. Right? So, stop telling people that you are sneaky and have trust issues because you don't trust niggas. You are niggas. That's the gag, guys. Y'all keep calling me naive. Here's the thing. Every friend who's ever called me naive, every friend who's been like, and I get this a lot, so shout out to my friends who are watching this. My friends tell me that watching me date stresses them out because I act like a fucking baby who ain't never been through shit. I'm like, oh, he's cute. Let's have fun. Let's see what happens. They're like, Blue, he's a fuckboy. He's just attractive and funny, but he's not good. I'm like, well, let's see what happens. Yay. Right? And guess what? Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. All times I'm fucking okay. The last time I got it wrong, I went off to have a beautiful life right afterwards. I immediately pivoted. My friends who were worried about me were like, oh, the bitch is okay. I thought she'd be wrapped in a blanket crying. She is at the function, dropping it and waiting for somebody to help her pick it back up. How the fuck? Okay. All right, this says that my internet connection just paused for a second. Someone says it's the Gemini rising you. Possibly. It's also the fact that for the last 21 years, I've been steeped in emotional intelligence work. And so I built up a muscle. Because here's the thing about muscle memory, guys. If you meet an athlete who has fallen off the wagon and gained a bunch of weight and lost some muscle mass and gone through a dark night of the soul, what happens the second they start working out again? Their body remembers. That's muscle memory. The beautiful thing about moving with integrity as my job, the beautiful thing about teaching classes that I'm still in. Y'all forget, I facilitate these classes, but I'm also taking them because I'm still in them. I'm constantly being fed by the work. I'm not just giving it away. I said on the Women's Den podcast, I don't believe in selfless. I love teaching the class because I'm regurgitating and learning things back as I'm teaching them. I taught a love bombing class last year and realized halfway through the class that I was being love bombed. When class was over, I had to make a phone call. Like, oh shit, this motherfucker love bombed me. As I'm teaching my own class. So I need you guys to understand muscle memory is important. You build a muscle. Somebody asked me on Threads the other day, Blue, emotional intelligence doesn't necessarily mean that you're acting on it. It means that you know what's happening. No, bullshit. Emotional intelligence is a muscle. If you understand the theory, but you haven't applied it, you are not emotionally intelligent. You're just a lazy know-it-all. I'm gonna repeat it one more time for the folks in the back. If you watch TikTok, read books, have seen old Oprah Winfrey clips, and think because you understand these concepts intellectually and theory, you are emotionally intelligent, but have never once had the bravery to actually try this shit in real life, you are not emotionally intelligent. You are a lazy know-it-all. Ain't done shit, but know. You know so much, but you haven't done anything. That's not EQ. EQ is a verb. It's a muscle. Okay? So I don't want to hear shit from the lazy know-it-alls. I'm not impressed. I have Wi-Fi too. right? Let me read some comments. Let's see. I see lots of blue hearts. Parent folks are kind, not nice. True. And they're compassionate. Ooh, I love all the names in here. Motherfucking bars. Aaron says, there's a joy in being open to the possibilities. Who wants to operate from trauma all the time? Exactly, Aaron. You still wise. You're just open and watching the signs as they come, not naive. Thank you, Aaron. I'm not naive. I'm just brave. And I have a cushion. I have a cushion. I can afford to take a risk because I have impeccable bounce back. I've had people who I've stopped communicating with who months, years later said, Blue, I'm not even going to hold you. I thought I meant more to you than that. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, after you and I stopped talking, your life didn't miss a beat. Does that mean you didn't care about me? No, I cared about you deeply. I'm just that fucking abundant where I can care about you, have you break my heart, and still have a fucking huge reserve of joy left over. My joy was never dependent on you. It doesn't mean I didn't care. Somebody said a lot of times people are, and this is something I have to be honest. I've had so many friends say to me, Blue, it bothers me that if you and I ever stop speaking, I feel like your life would still prosper without me. It would. It would. That doesn't mean I don't care about you. It means that the pressure is off. People who are in a space of lack, every single person that they are around feels like if I fail this motherfucker, they might fall to pieces. That is not emotional intelligence. That's not even community. That's fragility. A fragile person will fall to pieces and never recover if they lose you. A robust person in the space of self-mastery will love you deeply, give you everything they have, be transparent, vulnerable, and brave in you, invest in you, celebrate you, be sad as fuck when you leave, and still have an amazing life. Because their joy was never tethered to you. Your only place in their life was to enhance what they already created for themselves. So for all the people who have confessed to me over the last several years, because this has been happening to me for like 15 years now. For 15 years, people have been telling me, Blue, it pisses me the fuck off that you were still doing so well right after we disengaged. I thought I meant more to you than that. You always meant something to me. It doesn't mean I was codependent, though. Why do I have to fall to pieces for you to recognize that you mattered? That's a wound in you that you're upset is not reflected back in me. I loved you. And then you had me fucked up, and then I helped you walk to the door. Still loving you from across the street, right? Love does not mean proximity, guys. I think that's the hardest lesson people have to learn is love does not mean proximity. The only thing that buys you proximity to me is psychological safety. I don't hang out with only people I love. There are a lot of people who I love who I would not pick up the phone for right now unless they had an apology immediately in the text or in their hello. Hello, Blue, I'm sorry, right? There's a whole group of people that I love who could not get me in the room right now. Anybody that you see close to me is someone who I feel safe around. Proximity equals safety for me, not love. Love grows, but you can't even get close to me unless you're safe. And a lot of you have it backwards. A lot of you only keep around people that you love, whether they keep you safe or not. And then people that you love, because they have a vested interest in keeping you captive, they scare away the safe people. I do the inverse. I keep the safe people around me so that people who want to love me recognize what the price of admission is before they come towards me. Like, ooh, I need to leave this one alone. I don't think I know how to honor her properly. And I could tell that she likes me, but I can't honor it. And I can tell that if I don't honor it, she'll show me to the door. I will. I say this all the time. My best friend of 24 years and I, the person who I love the most outside of myself and my mother. My third favorite human on this planet outside of myself, my mother. I have not talked to him in 2 years because he made me unsafe and refused to acknowledge it and refused to apologize and refused to course correct. I don't think I'll ever love another man deeper than him until I get married. And yet, I would not take his call right now unless he was apologizing and acknowledging, right? So please stop conflating love with safety, guys. Stop. Your psychological safety is what makes you trustworthy to yourself. Would you trust somebody who constantly let people who made you unsafe around you? If you went to somebody's house party right now and it was full of all your enemies and people who treated you bad, would you ever go back to that house? No. Why? Because you wouldn't trust them. So you wouldn't trust someone who constantly keeps unsafe people around you, and yet you keep unsafe people around you. Make that make sense. I don't ask anything of others that I'm not already doing for myself. I am always my own proof of concept. Stop asking things of other people that you have yet to require of yourself. That is called hypocrisy. A lot of things, I'm not a hypocrite, right? So the beautiful thing about being emotionally intelligent, I have to wrap this up because I have meetings, is when you are emotionally intelligent, it is very hard for you to be a hypocrite because you don't use words like selfless. You recognize that everything that self does is a reflection of self, even when you're being nice. If I'm helping somebody in charity, it's because a part of me feels good helping them because I want to give back because somebody helped me. I feel good helping you because it's my turn to be of service. It's a blessing to be a blessing. Ricky Smiley once told me that a long time ago. It's a blessing to be a blessing. That's not selfless. That is not selfless. That's feeding me too. I don't have to pretend that I'm going hungry just because I'm feeding you. That is people pleasing. That is martyrdom. That is lies. People who tell the truth never call themselves gurus because I'm not a fucking guru. I'm an eternal student. The truth is bigger than me. I'm an eternal student. That's why I'm a master, right? Self-mastery means being an eternal student. That's why lazy know-it-alls who use terms like, Blue, I don't need your class. I already did the work. Oh, okay. I've never met a single fucking human being who couldn't benefit from my class. And that's not ego. It's because my class is based on universal wisdom that's bigger than me. That's not ego. I'm still taking my class. What the fuck are you talking about? Right? If you meet someone who is rushing to be an expert, but downplaying that they are a student, do not trust them. And social media has created what I've started calling expert addiction. Someone will learn something on Monday and will already be selling a course by fucking Friday. Nigga, you just learned it yourself. What do you mean you're an expert? You barely had time to figure out the theory, let alone master the application. A lot of you have expert addiction. You want so badly to show off how much you know. Cut that shit out. To this day, this is hilarious. Next month, August of 2024, will be my 21-year anniversary. My voice just cracked because it just freaked me out doing the math. Next month will be my 21-year anniversary of working in emotional intelligence. 21 years. Shout out to Moisturizer. I still get weirded out when people call me an expert. I'll be a coach, right? Because some coaches work out with you. I don't mind being a coach. I feel funny calling myself an expert. I'm not God. I'm not God. So again, for the folks who are late to this, because I have to wrap this up, this entire live was about trust issues. This entire live was about why do people who say that they don't trust anybody, and so they're sneaky and transparent, why do they not realize that they're lying to themselves? Heather said, work out with me. I do have to hit you about working out, Heather. If you are someone who's ever said that I am sneaky, I am not transparent, I am not vulnerable because I don't trust other people, please watch the playback of this live, because the truth is you don't fucking trust yourself. You are projecting. And I just spent the last 40 minutes explaining why saying that you're not transparent because of other people is bullshit. It's bullshit. Those of us who trust ourselves can afford to take risks. Those of you who don't trust yourselves have to play it safe because you're operating from lack. So rather than saying, Blue is so naive, like, damn, that bitch must really trust herself. Because I do. I really trust me. And here's the thing, guys. For those of us who work towards being trustworthy, I want to end on this note. If you are someone who has worked on being trustworthy and you have shown through your action consistently that you can be trusted, and someone insists on not trusting you, recognize they're not able to give it to you because they haven't given it to themselves. Don't take it personal. I can't tell you how many times I've broken my own heart. I've been complicit in my own demise because I took it personal that I was giving someone my best and they didn't have a room for it. When people are fasting, what do they always tell you when you're fasting? When you have not eaten for 4, 5, 6, 7 days, the first thing they tell you is you have to wean back onto solid food. right? You have to wean back on to nutritional substance because you've gone without for so long. Your body has gotten used to going without. I always tell the story. When I was in 7 or 8 years old, I went to Catholic school, and this was the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, when everything was a little racist. Everything's still racist now, but in the late 80s, early 90s, everything was blatantly racist, okay? Because nobody could get canceled yet. And they used to have these videos of African kids with distended bellies with flies flying all over their faces. And me, as a young immigrant, was like, this don't feel good. I don't like you showing little black kids who look like me with big bellies with flies all over them talking about, can you donate pennies? So I went to my teacher. I was a little revolutionary, a little troublemaker from the beginning. At 7.5 years old, I went to my teacher and said, I don't feel comfortable with sending pennies. Can I send a sandwich instead? Because you can't buy a sandwich for a penny. Like, I want to just send them some food. And Sister Irene, I'll never forget it, because I went to an Irish Catholic school. Shout out to Boston. Sister Irene said, oh, Emanuela, because that's my actual government name. Please don't call me Marie. I did a whole post on my stories. Stop fucking calling me Marie. I hate it. My name is not Marie, okay? That's a whole different conversation. But she was like, Emanuela, we can't do that. And I was like, why? Like, why can't we send them a sandwich? I was like, I got some rice and beans back home. And she said, if you were to give a starving child a sandwich, they would throw it up. Their body is not used to that much nutrition. We're sending the pennies so that they can give them broth and then vegetables and eventually work up to a sandwich. I remember how that stuck with me, about how the body gets used to lack so much that too much substance, too much goodness all at once can overwhelm it and make it shut down. Fast forward to 15 years later, I'm now doing my first writing job at the Harvard School of Public Health. And I'm in a think tank with all these big, intelligent people at Harvard who are explaining to me that they want me to help them write an emotional intelligence curriculum. And I'm like, I don't even fucking know what emotional intelligence is, but I need this check, so I'm gonna figure it the fuck out, right? Fresh out of college. And as I'm learning about emotional intelligence, it's hitting me. This is the spiritual and psychological version of 7-year-old me trying to figure out why kids can't eat those sandwiches. The spirit body is the same thing as the physical body. When you have been in a space of toxicity for years, if not decades, if not your whole life, when you have been affection deprived for years, if not decades, if not your whole life, when you've never had healthy communication, compassion, accountability, acknowledgement, investment, all these healthy things that are supposed to be good, if you've gone a long time without it and you meet someone like me, you meet a securely attached person who has an abundance of the very thing that you had to convince yourself for survival didn't fucking exist. You convinced yourself that you had to have trust issues. Could nobody be trusted? You convinced yourself that you had to be combative because everybody wanted to fight. You convinced yourself to lie because everybody else is lying too, right? You had to tell yourself that because you were starving. And then you meet someone who literally represents a buffet, a wealth of the very things that you needed to believe didn't exist. What do you think is going to naturally happen to most people? They're going to sabotage it. They're going to throw it back up. I can't afford to believe that you're exactly who you say you are. I can't afford to believe that you're this abundant. I cannot fucking afford to believe that people like you existed this entire time. Because if I admit that there's a feast that existed somewhere else while I was being convinced of famine, then now I'm going to have to admit all the pain that I feel from all these years of going without. Now I'm going to have to admit all the people that I loved who fucking failed me. Now I'm going to have to make penance for all the lies I told when the truth was actually a fucking option. Me acknowledging your existence is a threat to my entire livelihood. I can't afford to admit that you exist. So I'm going to sabotage it. I'm going to dishonor you in a way where you are forced to cast me aside. So I can go back to saying, see, I knew she didn't really mean it. I knew she didn't really love me. I can go back to being comfortable. So, if you are an abundant person who is consistently being dishonored by someone who is steeped in lack, recognize they're not fighting you. They're fighting for their lives. If they admit that you are real, if they admit the love was real, if they admit the investment was real, if they admit your character was real, they now have to go back and renegotiate everything else. And in the words of James Baldwin, to paraphrase James Baldwin, a lot of times when people are angry, they have to hold on to anger. Because if they lift up the lid on their anger, they'll have to admit that pain is what's hiding underneath it. My existence triggers people because if you admit that I'm real, now you have a whole lot of really uncomfortable questions to have with everybody who came before me. And I can't take that personal. I can show you grace, but guess what though? Until you figure out how to be safe, you don't get access to me. I can still show you grace while still keeping myself safe. Make sense, guys? Just because I understand why I trigger you doesn't mean I get to be your punching bag. You will still get fucking left unless you figure it out. Figure that shit the fuck out. I get why you're upset. I still get to be safe though. And what happens to a lot of abundant people is we have so much power, we give it away. Stop giving your power away. So today's mantra, this week's mantra is, I call my power back to me. I deserve to be safe. I call my power back to me. I deserve to be safe. I call my power back to me. I deserve to be safe. That's it. All right, I gotta go. I have to do a lot of client calls. I'm working on a really exciting project that I cannot wait to tell you guys about, but it's not coming out until the fall, I think mid-fall, early winter. But I hope this live was helpful. I actually like the idea of doing this on Monday mornings and getting it out the way and giving you guys a word to start the week. I will try my best to do it on Mondays if possible, but don't hold me to it because life has been lifing lately. I love y'all, and thank you for showing up for this. For those who are new to this space, again, I'm Bluecentric. I am a writer, a podcaster, executive producer, and an emotional intelligence coach. I'm also a little psychic, but that's a whole different conversation. So you might see some metaphysical stuff on here. If you don't subscribe to that, it's okay. I don't push my beliefs on anybody else. If you look at the pinned comment before I log off, the pinned comment says, register to work with Blue at fall24.eventbrite.com. Fall24.eventbrite.com is the link for the last Own Thy Shift self-mastery class that I'll be doing for the entire year. I only have part of me respecting myself is recognizing I only have the bandwidth to do it 3 times a year. We're currently in the summer session. Shout out to some of the summer session people who are in here. I see Asha and some of y'all in here. I love y'all too. The last session is kicking off in the fall in September. We meet for 8 weeks every Wednesday for 2.5 hours. And in those 2.5 hours, I literally have you pull out a fresh notepad and write notes about how to tangibly take back your life, evolve on your emotional intelligence, and have richer, more dynamic relationships that are steeped in honesty, not familiarity, right? I have demystified shadow work. It took me 15 years to really fine-tune this curriculum. It's not something I got from a course online. I started developing this in 2008, and now it's 2024. You do the math, right? So I was about 5 or 6 years into my career before I even started creating this, and now I'm about 15, 16 years into facilitating it, and every year it gets better. Every year it gets better because of how rigorous the conversations are, and I'm constantly learning from you guys. So I love y'all who've already been to the class. I love y'all who've shared the class. I love y'all who might be taking the class now that you've seen this. And if you're not taking the class because you can't afford it or you're just scared about being around people, although the fellowship on the Zoom call is actually almost as impactful as my teachings, that's why we have free game. Free game is my community offering to those who are still on the fence or who simply can't afford or don't have the bandwidth right now to take the class. Hope it was helpful because that's why I did it. All right, until next time, I got to go, guys. Love y'all. Bye. And yes, I will be saving this for one day. Actually, no, it might even be one day. A couple of hours. This is going to stay up for a couple of hours, maybe a full day on Instagram. And then it's going right to my YouTube page. My YouTube page is where I'm housing this stuff because it gets more visibility over there. Okay? So catch us if you can when I log off. But if you can't catch it, then make sure you head over to my Bluecentric YouTube where all of these things are housed. All right, love y'all for real this time. Bye.